Hey, and welcome to Synaptic Soul, the podcast where science meets spirit, and we get real about the beautiful and brutal and magical mess of being human. I'm your host, Ava Marie Anderson, writer, mystic, multidimensional mischief maker. Quick disclaimer, you may hear the occasional snort, sigh, dramatic flop from my two French bulldogs, Rocky and Rambo. They're the soundtracks of my life, my soul companions, and honestly, the real stars of the show. Someday we'll dedicate a full episode to their role in my daily rituals, emotional healing, and wild spiritual life. But for now, just know that they're always close by, snoring their support. Let's dive in. So here's the thing about timeline jumping. It's not about what you do, it's about who you stop being. And trust me, I say that as somebody who has lived lifetimes in one body. Like, I am the human embodiment of a Libra sun. People pleasing, approval seeking, can't make a fucking decision to save my life type energy. And my whole personality was built around being palatable. I needed to be the brightest, the bubbliest, the best, the friend who was always emotionally available, and the coworker who always over delivered. I was that woman who walked into every room like sunshine was flying out of her ass. And then the timeline snapped. I went through yet another spiritual awakening, and I realized that I wasn't walking in my highest timeline. I wasn't walking in alignment. I wasn't even walking in happiness. Like, I was walking in a version of reality that made me absolutely miserable. But I kept telling myself that it was the right thing and the responsible thing and the thing that made everybody else feel comfortable. And it was a timeline that I had built with trauma colored glasses, kind of like a Canva template saying success, but make it exhausting. And the shift didn't come because I manifested harder. Or I got better at journaling. The shift came the moment that I started shedding identities. And yeah, sometimes I shed people too. People who only knew how to love the version of me who self abandoned, or people who kept me in cycles of spiritual, emotional, unpaid labor, or people who benefited from me being nice but not being honest. And with every identity I let go, every mask and every survival mechanism, every version of me that was built just to be liked, I got a little closer to the timeline that I was actually calling in, one that felt peaceful and real and aligned and like I wasn't acting anymore. So, if you've been trying to jump timelines by doing all the things, but you're still landing in the same loop, just maybe cuter clothes, then this episode is for you, bro. Because the truth is, jumping timelines isn't going to save you from yourself, but becoming somebody who you don't have to abandon anymore, that'll change everything. So here's the thing. You think you jumped timelines because you did the ritual, you saged your aura, you lit your black candle, and you journaled, I am in my soft girl CEO era 12 times under a super fucking moon. And then you visualized and you wore linen and then you felt the shift. And it was like for 36 hours, right? You were floating. Everything felt so aligned. The portal was open and you were in it. And then boom, same situationship dynamics, same bank account balance, same Sunday night dread that maybe your life isn't actually that different. And I hate to be the one to say it, but you didn't jump. You just redecorated your trauma and you called it transformation. And I say it with love because I've been there too. And what nobody really talks about in the spiritual community, especially when they're selling you a 5D lifestyle and this 6-figure manifestation workbook, is that you cannot quantum leap your way out of nervous system dysregulation. You can't collapse a new reality if you're still somatically loyal to the old one. And the truth is that we don't live in the timeline that we want. We live in the one that feels most familiar to our body. So let me just say that again. We don't manifest what we say that we want. We manifest what we're wired for. And this is the part where quantum physics and biology hold hands and they whisper, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility now. So let's talk that science for a second. In quantum mechanics, there's this idea of superposition, and it's where multiple realities exist simultaneously as probabilities until one is collapsed into form by an observer. And your life is like that. All of these parallel versions of you, the wealthy you, the healed you, the partnered you, the peaceful you, they all exist. But the timeline that you actually land in is the one where your energy and your thoughts and your nervous system most consistently affirm. So, if you're trying to jump into a version of your life where you're deeply loved or financially free and creatively fulfilled, but your body is still bracing for abandonment and still subconsciously expecting failure and still emotionally addicted to struggle, then you're collapsing into the old frequency. And it's not because you're broken, but because you're just wired for it. And this is where things like somatic anchoring come in. Your body, your cells, your neural networks, hell, even your fascia store memory. And if you spent 10 years in survival mode navigating betrayal and rejection and instability and chaos, that shit doesn't disappear just because you did a vision board and you lit a $45 intention candle. It lives in your tissue. And your nervous system doesn't get the memo that you're abundant now just because your Pinterest board says so. It still thinks that you're in the emotional trenches. And let's be real. There's a kind of comfort in that. There's predictability, that muscle memory of being the one that gets hurt but also survives, or the one who settles but then spins it as loyalty, or the one that dreams big but always stays small because big feels terrifying even if you don't want to admit it. So what happens? You jump, but then you subconsciously recreate all the same conditions that confirm your old identity. So, new job, same unworthy frequency. New, I don't know, apartment, same spiral. New dating app, same unavailable energy. New timeline, bro, same you. And I'm not saying it to shame you. I'm saying this because you deserve to know that you're not doing it wrong. You're just doing it in a way that makes sense to your biology. And your nervous system is the gatekeeper of your quantum jump. And if it doesn't feel safe, it's not going to let you through. And not because it hates you, but because it loves you and it's trying to protect you from disappointment and from loss and from the unknown. But in doing so, it also traps you into the same emotional frequency, which becomes the gravitational pull, keeping you anchored to the past. So if you keep landing in the same damn timeline after jumping, here is your wake up call. It's not that your desire is broken. It's that subconscious agreement between your past and your present self that keeps saying, this is all we know, and this is who we are. And the portal didn't close, you just kind of brought your old self through it. Is you can't build a new reality with the frequency of your old wounds. And you can't script your dream life while trauma texting your ex. And I said what I said. But here's the good news. Just recognizing this, just naming the pattern without shame, that is a timeline jump because awareness is a frequency. And the moment that you become aware of your loops, you are no longer at their mercy. You are the observer now. And in quantum physics, the observer is what collapses the wave. So, yeah, you might not be in the timeline of your dreams yet, but the moment that you start noticing and you start choosing differently and you start questioning your default reactions, that is when you start to shift. And that is where the real magic begins. All right, bro, let's have a moment. Not a spiritual bypass moment, not a raise your vibration and forget your trauma moment, but a real ass spiritual bestie, sit your energy down and listen moment. You keep wondering why your timelines aren't sticking. while you're still manifesting half finished partnerships and inconsistent bank balances and that vague sense that no matter what you do, something is going to be off. And it's not because the universe is withholding from you. It's not even because you're unhealed. That's just a spiritual guilt culture speaking. Toss that shit. It's because you're still loyal to the version of you who was built to survive the bullshit. And that version, they worked hard. They endured. And they built defense systems like a fucking fortress. And they figured out how to love people who couldn't love them back. And then they figured out how to look like they were thriving while slowly bleeding out emotionally behind the scenes. They were scrappy and brilliant and did what they had to do to get you here. But you're not here to live there anymore. The real resistance to jumping timelines doesn't always come from fear of the unknown. Sometimes it comes from grief, from that quiet ache of letting go of the identity that held you when nobody else did, even if it was messy, even if it was trauma informed chaos. It was yours, and it kept you alive. And now, the version of you who knows better has to betray the version of you who didn't. And that's the spiritual betrayal that nobody really talks about. Not betraying your ex, not your old job, not your mom's expectations, but betraying the you who endured all of it. That self you constructed from coping mechanisms and survival instincts. And that version of you is in there whispering, we need that pattern. That chaos is what we understand. And that self abandonment is what kept us safe. And that people pleasing was our currency. And then here you come with your affirmations and your sage spray and your aligned boundaries. You are just threatening to dismantle the whole emotional economy of the version of you that you operated on. And that's terrifying. Because shifting timelines means becoming unavailable for the things that your old self was built around. It means letting go of identities like the strong one or the fixer or the one that doesn't need anything or the one that always bounces back no matter how bad it gets. And honestly, sometimes those identities were the only things standing between you and total collapse. But if you want the life that exists in the next timeline, where you're safe and you're seen and you're nourished and you're not chronically burnt out from carrying the weight of your ancestors and your last three relationships, you're gonna have to stop protecting the parts of you that are still loyal to being hurt. And let's get into that science for a sec, because you know I love a little neuroscience with my soul work. So, what we're talking about here is self schema theory. Your brain builds an identity framework based on repeated emotional experiences. So, if you've been the abandoned one, or the caretaker, or the chaos manager, your neural networks are literally structured around being that person. And then when you start acting out of alignment with that schema, when you start choosing peace over drama and boundaries over availability and rest over overfunctioning, your brain lights up like fucking system glitch, return to programming. And then we get hit with the reward prediction error. And this is when your brain expects a familiar outcome like rejection or struggle and then doesn't get it. And instead of celebrating the new data, the brain panics because unpredictability equals danger. Even if it's a good surprise, it doesn't match the emotional math that it's used to doing. So your subconscious runs back to the old script and it starts subtly pulling you back into those old behaviors and those old thoughts and choices and the people that confirm your identity as the fixer or the overgiver or the almost successful or the not quite worthy. And it's not because you're broken. It's because your brain is loyal to what it knows. And here's the kicker: your energetic field is loyal too. We don't just hold loyalty in thought, we hold it in our aura and our choices and our posture and our voice and our expectations. Like, you can tell when somebody is still energetically bowing to an old self image. They talk about their dream life like a possibility, but they talk about their past life like it's still in the driver's seat. And loyalty to your old self sounds kind of like things like, I don't like, I've always been like this, or that's just how I am, or I've never been good with money, or I'm just, the one that fucking holds it all together. But let me tell you, that's not you. That's the you that you learned to be. And jumping timelines means breaking up with those emotional contracts that you didn't even know you signed. And those contracts were like forged in love, but love from fear isn't the same as love from truth. And truth will rip that comfort blanket off of you in the middle of the night and say, "You're not her anymore. Get up. We are going." So, yeah, you're trying to jump timelines, but are you ready to betray the version of you that that old life made necessary? Because that is the moment that you shift. Not when your vision board's perfect, not when you hit 30 days of journaling, but when you stop defending a self concept that isn't meant to survive in the timeline that you actually want to live in. Jumping timelines won't save you from yourself, but dropping your loyalty to the outdated version of you who only knew survival, that one that one might just do the trick. This episode is brought to you in part by one of my most favorite humans on this spinning planet, Morgan Garza, and her book Soul Magic. If you've ever felt like your power was just waiting beneath the surface, or like there's something ancient and electric inside of you ready to be reclaimed, then this is the book that helps you remember. Soul Magic is not just a read, it is a summoning. It's filled with rituals and stories and the kind of grounded spiritual wisdom that doesn't talk at you, it talks with you. Morgan writes like a soul sister, a cosmic cheerleader, and a priestess all rolled into one. And it's a must have for anyone on the path of awakening, reclaiming. So grab your copy at morgangarza.com or wherever books are sold, or bless someone else's journey and gift it, because real magic's meant to be shared. That's Soul Magic by Morgan Garza. You'll feel it in your bones. You are trying to jump timelines, but the people and the habits and the environments around you are coded for a version of you that doesn't exist anymore, or at least shouldn't. Like your nervous system might be doing better, and you might be balls deep in your healing era, and you've likely upgraded your beliefs, and you cut some cords, and you even started saying no out loud and not just telepathically while smiling and agreeing. And I love this for you. But your physical reality and your daily life are still vibing in 2019. And let's just call it what it is. You're trying to call in a new frequency while still operating in the set design of your last trauma loop. And I don't know, it's like trying to stream Netflix on a dial up because it's not gonna fucking happen. Or worse, it's buffering just enough to keep you hopeful, but then glitching every 5 minutes so you never actually get to live in it. And here's the truth. Timeline jumping isn't just spiritual, it is structural. You can't jump into the future while living inside the bones of your past. And I mean that literally. Like the job that you hate but you won't leave because it's secure, or the friends that you keep because they've known you forever, even though they drain your soul, or the clothes in your closet from a version of you who shrank herself for men and bosses and brunch invites, or the way that your calendar is booked with stuff, but it's all shit that you low key resent, but you still say yes because you haven't fully stopped performing. That is the furniture of your old timeline. And then you're over here trying to hang up new art on these old ass walls, but that's not going to work. So let's get scientific about it because you know what? I'm going to bring some of the data. This is behavioral entrainment. Your subconscious is always looking for cues from your environment to know who to be. So even if you think that you changed, your outer world is still feeding your brain signals that reinforce your old identity. Like your kitchen and your playlists and your Instagram feed and your group chat. It all sends messages to your nervous system about who you are and how safe you are and what's possible. And if those messages are based on outdated survival programming, your body will keep reverting to like the last known blueprint, even though your spirit is ready to fly. And then there's epigenetic programming. And that's when your genes get turned on or off based on your environment and your stress levels. So, if you're still surrounded by noise and chaos and clutter and shitty fucking lighting and people who don't see you and responsibilities that drain your soul, guess what? Your body is still expressing the biology of burnout and lack and codependence, even if you've been in therapy for a year and you drink magnesium water now. You're not broken. You're just living in quantum mismatch. And don't get it twisted. It's not just about aesthetics. This isn't like throw out your old clothes and your life will change, although honestly, sometimes it does start there. This is about resonance. You can't expect the frequency of freedom and expansion and self trust to show up when every inch of your external world is coated with fear and scarcity and people pleasing. It's like trying to listen to jazz in a room full of screaming toddlers and wondering why you can't fucking relax. And then let's bring in the reticular activating system. This is the filter in your brain that decides what to pay attention to. It's like a fucking bouncer at the door of your perception. And if your environment is still triggering the you who expected betrayal and chaos and failure, that's what your brain's going to keep scanning for. And that's what your subconscious will keep collapsing into reality, no matter how much you script out your next timeline. And the worst part is that most people don't realize that they're still architecting their life based on a blueprint drawn up by their wounds. Like the way that you arrange your day, or the way that you spend money, or the way that you fill your time, or the way that you tolerate people who disrespect you. All of that is part of the old timeline's operating system. And you can't jump into your next level life while your fridge is still stocked like you're about to emotionally binge. And you can't call in love while your bedroom still screams, "This is where I cry over people." And you can't attract aligned friendships if you keep holding space for people who wouldn't recognize the healed you if she slapped them. So if you want a new life, dude, you've got to stop treating your current one like a thrifted version of your trauma. And this is the part where people say, but I can't just change everything overnight. And no, nobody's saying that you should. And this isn't about flipping your whole life like an HGTV episode. It's just about recognizing where you are still reinforcing the identity that you say you are trying to leave behind. You shift timelines when you stop living like your old self is in charge. So maybe you don't move out right now, but you stop arranging your life around your wounds and you stop feeding your old identity through routine and environment and relationships that just, I don't know, keep it on life support. Because otherwise, you're not jumping. You're just nesting into your old timeline with a manifestation candle. You can journal "I am worthy" 1,000 times. Like, you can shout your manifestations into a Himalayan singing bowl while standing in goddess pose under a Leo full moon. And you can chant "I am magnetic" until your neighbors start to think that you've joined a cult. But if your body is still bracing for abandonment, if your chest tightens every time something good happens, or if you say "I'm safe" while scanning the room for danger, then that's just not true. Your nervous system's calling bullshit, and your energy doesn't lie. This isn't about wanting it badly enough. This isn't about low vibes or negative thinking. It's all about biology, and let's break it down. Your nervous system, bless its trauma coded little circuits, is designed to protect you, not to manifest your dream life. Not to align you with your highest self, but to keep you alive based on what you have survived so far. So when you say things like "I am loved," but your body's still on high alert for betrayal or disapproval, you've got what the Heart Math Institute calls emotional incoherence. And that is when your heart and your brain are not in vibrational sync. And your electromagnetic field, the one that you are projecting into the quantum, is a hot mess of contradiction. And in case nobody ever told you, the universe responds to your frequency, not your Pinterest quotes. But let's bring that reticular activating system in again because she's back and she is petty. If your RAS has been trained to expect rejection and chaos and abandonment, then even when something beautiful shows up, you are not going to see it. You will literally filter it out, or worse, you'll sabotage it. Not because you're unworthy, but because it doesn't match your internal programming. I'll say it again, you're not broken. You're just broadcasting from a station that says, "We don't trust this good thing to last." And the universe, she's going to vibe with what you actually believe. And then this is where resonance comes in. Every thought and emotion has a frequency. High vibe doesn't mean fake positivity, it means alignment. So when your inner world is congruent, your thoughts and your emotions and your body sensations and your beliefs, then your signal is clean. You are broadcasting a message from the quantum that can actually receive. But most people are out here broadcasting glitchy, scrambled energy that sounds like, I want love, but I'm terrified to be seen, or I want money, but I associate success with burnout and betrayal, or I want peace, but I equate stillness with danger. And it's like trying to manifest a concert while your energy keeps requesting static. And I get it. Affirmations feel good. Like they give you that sense of control, and they're pretty and they look great on mirrors and journals and Canva graphics. But dude, if they're not integrated into your emotional landscape, then they're just words. It's just spiritual wallpaper. But let's go deeper. Your subconscious makes up about 95% of your cognitive functioning. And that's the part of your mind that runs the show. It is your emotional hard drive. So, when your conscious mind says, I am powerful, but your subconscious, based on years of trauma and conditioning and micro abandonments, believes that I'm only safe when I'm invisible, guess which one wins? I'm just going to, spoiler alert, it's not the mirror mantra. Because manifestation isn't mindset, it is embodiment. And you can't fake embodiment. Your energy is honest even when you're not. And this is why so many people feel stuck. Because they're trying to affirm their way into a life that they don't feel safe receiving. And they don't need a better vision board. They just need to recalibrate the emotional frequency that's been their default setting for decades. But let's talk cellular memory real quick. Your cells actually store the vibrational imprint of past experiences. So, if you have spent years in environments where you have had to shrink or hustle for love or tolerate emotional whiplash, your body literally becomes habituated to that frequency. It becomes the baseline. And no, a 10-minute morning affirmation routine does not undo 20 years of somatic patterning. And it's not shade, it's just the truth. So, what does work? Well, being honest with yourself, with your body, with places that still hold the fear and the grief and the resentment and the rage, and not by fixing it immediately. Not by bypassing it with glittery language, but just meeting it and feeling it and noticing the mismatch between what you're saying and what your body is feeling, and then not shaming it either. Because that moment of noticing, that's coherence, that's presence, and presence is magnetic. The timeline you are trying to jump into is not looking for the most spiritually articulate version of you. It is looking for the most congruent version of you, the one who isn't lying to themselves about what still hurts, and the one who's not performing worthiness, but the one who actually believes in their right to receive. The one who doesn't need to declare, I'm safe every hour, because they feel it in their bones. So, yeah, affirmations can be powerful, but only if the energy behind them is real. And only if your nervous system isn't rolling its eyes behind your third eye. You don't need to say more. You just need to believe deeper. And that starts by getting honest about what you actually feel, because that is what the universe is listening to. This episode is supported in part by Sage App, aka the app that's basically a metaphysical multivitamin. It's like having a spiritual sanctuary in your pocket, minus the incense smoke in your purse. It's also where I host my new moon manifestation clubs, which, if you know, you know, we go deep. So if you're ready to stop doom scrolling and start soul scrolling, download Sage in the App Store or Google Play and then step into a more intentional, magical version of your day. That's SAGED, like Sage, but with an app. Back to the episode. So here's the most annoying truth about this whole timeline jumping thing. You don't get to skip over your shit. You don't get to fake it till you make it with the quantum. You don't get to affirm your way around avoidance because the universe and your body know when you're lying. And if your high vibration is just a mask for unprocessed grief or unspoken rage or a very persistent codependency loop that you refuse to name, then you didn't jump. You just temporarily dissociated, but with better lighting. Because at the end of the day, the timeline that you actually want isn't waiting for the polished version of you. It's just waiting for the honest one. The one that says, I'm still scared, but you know what? I'm fucking showing up anyway. Or the one that admits that I've outgrown this life, even though it still fits in some places. And that's the portal. It's not about being healed, it's just about being real. And the real jump doesn't happen when you perfect your rituals or you get your frequency to 528 hertz on a Tuesday at 3:33 p.m. It happens the moment that you stop performing your health and you start embodying your truth. Because embodiment is the real spell work. That is the vibration that bends timelines and reshapes entire realities. But let's pull in the science one last time because this part is important. In quantum choice theory, it is not just the field of let's say it again, infinite potential that matters. It's the chooser. So you collapse the wave function. You determine the timeline that you want to experience. And every time that you tell the truth, especially when it's uncomfortable, you become the observer who creates something new. And in neuroscience, that's neuroplasticity. It's the moment that you make a different choice, even if it's just like 1% different, you begin to rewire your brain and your nervous system and your entire energetic signature. You literally begin to exist on a new track, one micro shift at a time. But most people never jump because they're too busy defending the identity that kept them safe. And they don't want to leave behind the self concept built on suffering. And they don't want to disappoint the version of them who survived by being small and compliant or hyper capable. And so they keep trying to jump while carrying it all. And I say this with all the love I can. You can't take your pain with you. Not like that. Not the unprocessed kind. You can honor it and you can alchemize it, but you can't keep identifying it and then expect to land in the version of you who's free. Because the jump is in the moment that you choose integrity over illusion. The jump is in the boundary that you hold, even when it makes you shake. And it's in the job that you walk away from sometimes, in the conversation that you finally have, and in the part of you that says, I refuse to live in delay anymore. Because here's the thing. You're already in the field. You're already in motion. The only question is which version of you is choosing? Is it the one still loyal to survival or the one who's willing to become something new? And no, it is not in an instant. You don't land in a new life 5 seconds like some spiritual Amazon Prime delivery. But every time you show up differently, every time you stop lying to yourself about what it is that you want and what it is that you need and what it is that you feel, you're stepping further into the timeline that actually matches the you that you are becoming. So, if you're listening to this and wondering why you haven't shifted yet, then ask yourself, what truth have I been avoiding that would set my frequency free? And that's your portal. And you can walk through it. Because jumping timelines won't save you from yourself, but becoming somebody who no longer abandons their truth, that will change everything. If you loved this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a glowing review. It helps more beautiful souls like you find this space. Because your words matter, your energy ripples, and every review is like a little spell of support for the Synaptic Soul mission. So until next time, stay curious, stay cosmic, and keep waking the F up.